Hey friends, Neil here from Post to Post. Thanks for taking a couple of minutes out of your day and joining me for this one, talking NHL jerseys, concepts specifically, and the series today is vintage. We do this once a week, typically on Fridays. I'm filming this a little bit last minute, so I'm actually not sure if we're going to be able to get this out on Friday, but if it is, happy Friday. If it's not, happy weekend. So either way, we're going to have some fun in this video. The designer's Jamie. He's got 32 jerseys for us. Jamie, let's jump in. You submitted your work in the past. It is good, so let's check out what you got today. First one's going to be Anaheim, so let's bring that up. All right, well, I mean, that's pretty, I guess, predictable. If we're talking vintage, well, we need to, like, vintage basically means retro, right? So we have to kind of go back into the history of all the teams and think, what's the most logical thing that they could do that's not exactly what they wore back then, but it still represents that kind of time period or era from that team. This is exactly... No, Jamie's really hit the mark here. This is exactly what the Anaheim Ducks could do if there was a vintage series. Is there going to be? Almost certainly not, because we got Reverse Retro 1.0 and Reverse Retro 2.0 in 3 years. It's just not very plausible for Fanatics to do a vintage or retro series. I think the next one's going to be something a little bit different. So although this is predictable in terms of what the design is for Anaheim, it's a nice design, because it's got the eggplant purple, it's got the green in there, the traditional slanted striping. The series probably isn't that plausible, I guess, if that makes sense. I love it. I love retro stuff. I love vintage stuff. But who knows? I could be wrong. I am wrong a lot. Jamie, I will say that I do appreciate you submitting your designs on a monochrome, whatever, black, white, gray, whatever background, so your design really pops. I really appreciate when designers do that. I just find it helps the jersey breathe a little bit more, and it's also easier for me when I make the thumbnail and I have to cut the jersey out of the image. So I appreciate that. Let's move on to the next one. It's going to be Boston. Okay, I mean, vintage, technically, this is vintage. I mean, it's their regular logo, recolorized a little bit. It's a regular striping. There's nothing crazy going on. It's not modern, but it does feel modern. I think it's because it's two-tone. There's no white, and traditionally, a lot of those two-tone jerseys, like the Edmonton Oilers alternate from a couple of years ago, that does feel very modern, even though it's kind of not. Like, it's not really that innovative or anything. It's just lacking the white. And I think lacking the white here, I'm not sure if it makes it feel vintage. Like, technically it is vintage in terms of design and layout and elements, but it also could be modern. All right, let's keep moving. Buffalo's next. This one's tricky, I guess. Vintage as in mid-2000s, maybe, because of the goat head logo. But they've also used that recently twice. So it doesn't even feel maybe that retro, I guess, because we're used to that logo. Also, there's metal fleck in the gold striping. That's something that did not exist until 2017. So that's not vintage at all. So personally, I don't think that this is a vintage jersey. I don't think this belongs in this series. It's a nice jersey. I have nothing negative to say about the jersey. I just don't think it belongs in this specific series. So good design. Not for this series. Carolina. So here is one that I think does fit in the vintage series. This brings me back to early 2000s when they came into the league. This is traditional vintage Carolina Hurricanes. I like the gray that's in there. I think the black as the solid color. Gray is the secondary color. I guess maybe technically red. Gray would be the tertiary. But still, this feels very vintage, and I think this would even do well today as a retro vintage style jersey. So to me, this one is on the money. I said early 2000s earlier. I don't actually remember the year that Carolina came into the league. Was it 98? Or was it early 2000s? Yes, 98. Sorry, technically 97. But yeah, my bad. I always get those four teams mixed up that came into the league in the late 90s, early 2000s. Okay, Columbus. Speaking of Columbus Blue Jackets, this is, pretty retro. It's pretty basic in a good way. I mean, there's lots of breathing room in the arms. It's pretty solid blue there, the entire thing. A little bit of star action at the bottom. That's good. I like the shoulder patch. Maybe a little bit practice jersey, but still retro or vintage. Calgary. I would say definitely vintage for sure. I think this is almost a cross between, I guess, the previous generation of Calgary jersey and like the late 80s, early 90s kind of version, maybe of the Flames jersey. I have to go back and reference that a little bit. But yeah, it's vintage. Chicago Blackhawks, I mean, absolutely. This is pretty much the definition of vintage. This is, I want to say mid-1920s. I will double check that. Close, but incorrect. It was the mid-30s, not the mid-1920s. I apologize for that. it's difficult when you got these original 6 teams and they've been around for 100 years or whatever. Trying to get these timelines of all the jerseys for those 6 teams is difficult sometimes. But this is, I mean, very expected. Would be well received in the vintage series, and I think fans would like this. So it's outside of Chicago as well. The Colorado Avalanche with some Rockies spice in here. So vintage in terms of like the middle of the jersey, maybe solid red as a color, a little bit bold, but okay. That logo on there, just basically untouched. That's vintage. But the shoulders, that's obviously very modern. Now, modern in terms of like the last 30 years. Like Colorado came into the league 1995, 1996. This general like design layout kind of thing has existed since then. They use it now in a different version, but this is kind of current as well. So there's aspects of this that I feel is vintage and aspects that are not. Next, the Dallas Stars. I was not expecting that like clay type color in the background. I think it's interesting. I don't think that the logo colorized like that works. I think you'd have to have some kind of external element on the logo to make it pop off there. A white stroke, some kind of back casing or shape, or I don't know, just something to make it pop off of that color. They're both very dark, kind of muted colors, so I find that they clash a little bit. Additionally, the star, I'd like to see that in white maybe, just because like the main aspect of the star that's happening is that white outline. So maybe if it was white in the middle, it might have a little bit better of a relationship or something. But I don't know. It's an interesting take though. I kind of like the colors. I just think that it needs a little bit more spice in the middle. Detroit, totally. This is a bit of a call out to the Detroit Cougars, is it? Yeah, a little bit. I'm doing lots of referencing today. So that team did something very similar. They had text on top and then their logo kind of underneath. So this is absolutely vintage. Even if the Cougars didn't exist and you saw this, you'd be like, oh yeah, maybe Detroit did wear that 70 years ago or something. So yeah, I think this fits. It's good. Okay, the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, this isn't really that different from the Reebok version that they used as an alternate jersey around 2015, 2016 time period. I think maybe even to early 2017 as well. I can't remember if they used it that season, but this is, I don't think this is personally vintage to me. It uses all the original colors. It still has the same design and stuff, but it just feels like more of a recent jersey. On top of that, the Edmonton Oilers also used a variation of that Reebok jersey as their home jersey for the introduction in the Adidas years. And they used that as their home jersey for quite a while, into the early 2020s, I believe. So this really is not that vintage to me personally. Next, whoa, the Florida Panthers. Was not expecting yellow as the primary color. I actually kind of like this. It's a bit Ronald McDonald, but I do like it. Like, this is a super, super interesting jersey for the Florida Panthers. It's the Sunshine State. Why not have yellow as the primary for some kind of jersey or uniform? And there's not too much yellow. That's the criticism I have a little bit with the Nashville Predators. Sometimes I feel like the uniform's a little bit too yellow. It's like a giant walking mustard bottle. I think if you use blue pants here and a blue helmet, maybe, I think this could be a pretty cool uniform. Jamie, I like this. I think there's going to be some people who don't, because it is a very, I guess, intense jersey, using yellow as the primary. Plus for Florida, we've never seen a yellow Florida jersey. We've seen blue, we've seen red, we've seen white. Like, this is, different variations of blue as well, light blue. But we've never seen a yellow. So this might be a little bit jarring to Panthers fans. They might not like this. But I think there's going to be a couple that do. And I'm one of those couple. The LA Kings, this is basically Reverse Retro 2.0. I think it's right over my shoulder, hanging up back there. So yeah, this is very vintage. Yeah, we like it. The Minnesota Wild, okay. I really like this jersey. Like, this concept is pretty much perfect. I love the fact that there's relation between sizing. Sometimes you can do that with color. Sometimes you can do that with elements. But when you do it with striping, it just adds that nice subtle balance. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the white striping on the arm and the bottom of the jersey, it's almost the same thickness of the white up here on the neck. I find that additionally, it's not too much white. Like, I think with the recent Quebec Nordiques jersey, the Colorado Avalanche Quebec Nordiques jersey, it's too much white up here. Jamie has introduced a little bit of yellow and green as this top piece here, and I think that's what Colorado should have done in the Quebec jersey. So Jamie was very smart in adding that little bit of color in there and also providing that balance striping wise. So this is good. And I don't think it's vintage though. Like that's the thing I was getting at the beginning. This is a nice jersey. I probably wouldn't change anything about it. It's very, very good. I like the North Star's little call out on the shoulder there with a different variation of the logo. That is cool. But it's still using their current logo, kind of recolorized. It almost looks like a little bit of glow off of the striping because that yellow stroke. Like this isn't vintage to me personally. It's more modern. Okay, next the Montreal Canadiens. A little bit too basic for me. I think that it needs the backing stripe. This feels like a jersey that you would buy at Walmart. This ain't it, Jamie. Sorry. The Devils. I mean, it's pretty close to their home jersey. So I would, if I'm thinking vintage for the Devils, I think you have to put green, right? Like we had to go all the way back to the early 80s, 1981, 82. They had the green. I think you have to put some green in here for a vintage jersey. Nashville Predators. Ooh, a bit of a cool steel type gray. I do like this quite a bit. It does feel modern, but it is very vintage though. If you look at how the logo is stylized, it does feel vintage. If a jersey was designed in the early 2000s, in the late 1990s and early 2000s, that kind of little pocket of the timeline, and it was designed to look futuristic, which the Nashville Predators, that their brand kind of was designed that way. If now in 2025, if that look feels normal and not futuristic because we are the future, if we look back on that time, does that mean that is now vintage? There's a thing happening there. I'm not sure if that's going to make sense to anyone or if that's just me running circles in my head, but anyways, I like the jersey. It's very good. Okay, the Islanders, pretty close to the home jersey. Different, there's a couple differences, obviously, but pretty close. I mean, what do you do with the Islanders other than the Fisherman? Like, if you don't do the Fisherman, what do you do for a vintage jersey? There's not really any options, so don't fault Jamie here at all. It's a nice jersey. The Rangers, this is exactly what they used as their kind of anniversary jersey, so this makes total sense. Shents? Wow, that's a new one. This makes total sense. And that's exactly why the Rangers did it. This does fit into the vintage series, so good decision here, Jamie. Ottawa Senators, oh my goodness. Okay, I love this. I would love for the Ottawa Senators to do this. I think it would be so good for them to do, but so many people would hate it. This would be such a meme jersey. People would hate on this. People would make memes about it, but I love it because it's so different. The only thing close to this is when the Montreal Canadiens brought back in 2009 that Barber Pole jersey. That is the closest that we have gotten to something as extreme as this. So I think it's time. It's time again for us to get something like this, and it's just part of a vintage series. Okay, it's not sticking around for long. Let's hypothetically in Jamie's world here. So one season, maybe 4 games, 5 games. It's worth putting up with for a couple of games just so we have this. Like as a collector, this would be cool to have. Philadelphia. Yeah, I like the black as the primary color. That does feel a little bit vintage, but to me, maybe more mid life cycle of the Philadelphia Flyers. So I'm a little bit torn. I like the jersey. I just don't know if it fits in the series. Pittsburgh, absolutely. I mean, we kind of got a version of this as an alternate jersey a couple of years ago. It's good. This does feel vintage. The Seattle Kraken, a little bit close to the home jersey, a little bit close to the Winter Classic. Obviously, what do you do for the Seattle Kraken? Do you have to go all the way back to the Seattle Metropolitans in 1918 or whenever they played? Like, that's, I don't know. Well, what do you do? To me, this is a little bit too modern to be in a vintage series, but it has obviously vintage aspects. I think it's just maybe a little bit too polished. Does that make sense? Sharks, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, this is great. This would be a really good retro kind of vintage jersey. Good job, Jamie. St. Louis, oh, that's interesting. I don't know if I love the desaturated yellow. It gets way too desaturated almost. It's becoming tan, not yellow. I mean, I guess obviously that's the intention, but I don't know. It's not bad. It's not bad. I don't know. Well, let me know what you think. Tampa Bay Lightning, definitely. Yeah, that works okay. I think that is definitely vintage. Not too much to say beyond that. Toronto Maple Leafs, yeah, that's very vintage. I think it does need something though. Like, If you look at the arms, there's blue all the way down. That's not really a bad thing, but there's no other elements on the jersey other than the white at the bottom middle of the jersey. So just take that white and put it on the sleeves as well. I think it would also balance with the neck. The Utah Mammoth, what do you do? What do you do? Skip. The Vancouver Canucks, wow. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. It is vintage. It's just probably not the direction that I would go personally. Vegas Golden Knights, not really a fan of this. Feels very muddy. Yeah, it feels a little bit muddy to me. The Winnipeg Jets, yeah, totally. Very close to the alternate jersey from a couple of years ago. Different logo, obviously. It's pretty good. And the Capitals, definitely. This feels mid-70s. What year did they come into the league? 73? Damn it. 74. Anyway, good jersey. Definitely fits into the vintage series. Do I make a bold decision here? Do I make a bold decision? I really want to say Florida just because it totally took me off guard. Like, I was not expecting that at all. But I think the most, like, plausible one, like, I'm thinking ones like the San Jose Sharks. Like, that's a pretty plausible design for them to do, like, a vintage jersey. It's very similar to their 30th anniversary jersey they did a couple of years ago. It's very similar to their original jersey, in a way, obviously. But it would translate well today, and I think it would sell well too. However, I do want to give it to the Carolina Hurricanes, just because they are going through a little bit of an identity crisis. So if this did come out in a vintage, hypothetical future vintage series, I think this would almost ground them a little bit, like bring them back to their roots, because we got some Hartford Whalers stuff, and that's cool and stuff, but this is vintage Carolina, and I think that's what they need. They need to ground themselves, or pick a design, whether it's a retro kind of design like some teams are doing, Calgary, Ottawa, yada, 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 the list goes on. Or do they want to do something modern? I don't know, but I feel like this jersey would ground the brand a little bit. So I'll give it to Caroline. So thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Hope you guys are having a good start to your weekend. If I do release this on a Friday, if not, I hope you are enjoying your weekend when you watch this, or whenever you watch this. We do this once a week. So I would love to have you on board. If you're new, hit the subscribe button down below. I'd really appreciate that. And of course, let me know down below in the comment section, what was your favorite design that you saw from this video? Now, Jamie in this video is using a very, very basic template. I would recommend that anyone who is submitting any concepts to the channel, and if you're interested in that, by the way, details below in the description on how to do that. But if you're interested, I would recommend getting a better template than the one that Jamie's using. I obviously know that some people don't have the computer to handle some of the higher quality templates, and they can't use Photoshop and all this stuff. So designers, have to do what they can, and use some of the more basic templates. But I think the better the template is, the better the design comes across. Now, I'm not saying you need to use the top template out there. You don't have to. You can use whatever template that you want. However, I do want to make two recommendations. If you're looking for a basic template that is a little bit better than the one that Jamie's using here, there's a free one out there. It's from Puck Designs. Go check it out. You can find it out there. It is free. I use it for my redesign series just because it's easy to work with, right? But if you want to really go all in and maybe treat this as a potential career, or maybe you really seriously want to get into designing jerseys and stuff, I'd absolutely recommend getting the Sports Templates one. That is the highest quality one in the industry. It's 8K, fully 3D, incredible lighting, fully customizable, texturized, and I can save you money. If you use my code POST2POST, it will save you 10% on that template and any other template on the site. SportsTemplates.net is not just about hockey. It's not just about jerseys. It's about all sports and all templates. Like, for real, there's over 70, I think maybe close to 80 or maybe 90 templates on that site now, and they have free ones. So maybe you don't want to drop the coin right away. You just want to play around and stuff. Have at it. Grab one of those free ones and have some fun, right? And then in the future, maybe you can invest. But make sure you use the code POST2POST. That will save you some money. So thank you so much again for watching. I appreciate you. Hope you guys have a great weekend watching lots of hockey and potentially baseball this weekend. So we'll talk to you soon, early next week. Adios.